Hey there folks, welcome to another edition of Time About the Movies. We're in the middle of September 1989. We've got 4 movies to look at today, so let's go ahead and get started. We're starting off with Al Pacino's first movie he's made in 4 years. After Revolution crashed and burned at the box office, he took a 4-year hiatus. He returns with this movie, which was a much bigger hit for him. It's the thriller Sea of Love. So like I said, this was Al Pacino's first big movie after Revolution crashed and burned. But this movie was a much bigger success for him, and it was actually a much better movie than this. It's weird. We had a movie that was very similar to this just a couple weeks ago called Relentless, in which Judd Nelson was a guy who was killing people, random people, calling them on a phone. Except this time around, they're killing people through the singles column of the newspaper, the serial killer is. And it makes for a much better movie. This is obviously a much better film. It has a better director involved, Harold Becker, Richard Price, who had written The Color of Money, and he also wrote Clockers later on. And a good cast. You got, like I said, Al Pacino, Ellen Barkin, John Goodman. Great cast here. And, for the most part, it's a really good movie. You can kind of predict you can definitely predict there's going to be something with Ellen Barkin's character, maybe being the killer, but the film does a good job of keeping the mystery interesting. They do a very good job of keeping the mystery interesting, keeping it so you have all these other pieces here that you need to figure out who the killer is. And I like that it didn't. And I like that it does that. I like it didn't just straight out tell you who the murderer is. And like I said, you got Al Pacino, you got Ellen Barkin, you got John Goodman. You're gonna have a good cast here. It's a very stylistic looking movie. It's definitely a really interesting film. It's one of those movies that I don't think a lot of people really talk about, but it's actually a pretty decent film. If you definitely haven't seen this movie, I'd say give it a shot. It's really worth a watch. So that's my thoughts on Sea of Love. Pretty good movie. Maybe not the best of this type of genre, but it's better than some of the other movies that we've already seen that have been like this. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that's Bruce Willis in Country. In Country is, of course, Norman Jewison's follow-up to Moonstruck, and this is, I believe, Bruce Willis's first movie after he made Die Hard, which really ignited his career. And it's another one of those movies that could be kind of Oscar baity in a lot of ways. I could definitely see a lot of those tropes that you see in these type of Oscar bait movies, but for the most part, it's actually a pretty decent film. I think Bruce Willis and Emily Lloyd do a good job carrying the film overall. I like some of the music by James Horner is pretty good. I like some of the set pieces they have. I like the story they're trying to tell here. Like I said, it definitely has a lot of those, Oscar baitish type things, but it's not completely annoying. It's not something like on the same level to something like King's Speech or Green Book, which is I think is the worst type of Oscar bait movies that actually people were suckered into to give a Best Picture to. But I mean, this is a good movie. It's a good movie. Maybe not a great movie overall, but I think the performances really carry it out to make it more watchable than I think it has a lot of people thinking. So, In Country, decent film, not the best, but certainly far from the worst. It's actually a pretty good movie, I would say, honestly. That's my thoughts on that one. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is The Big Picture. Now, it's interesting, the David Putnam era at Columbia Pictures was not one of the best eras for Columbia Pictures, but there were those bright spots. Of course, The Last Emperor was one of the biggest ones. I talked about that on a post I did yesterday, on my Take On post, if you want to go check that out. But he was known for greenlighting smaller movies at Columbia Pictures, and he found some gems in there. This was definitely one of those movies that I don't think a lot of people really think about, but it's Christopher Guest, and this was Christopher Guest's first major motion picture. And of course, he's gone on to make several great comedies during his time as a filmmaker, and he's also done a lot of good TV and all that. And this was actually a pretty good movie. It's a movie that's targeting Hollywood in general. In fact, Columbia Pictures really did not like this movie because they thought it was satirizing them too much. And in the end, it makes for a very funny satirical comedy. It's a comedy that I don't think a lot of people really look at as one of the greats, but it's a very underrated movie. It's got a great cast to it. Kevin Bacon, J.T. Walsh, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Michael McKean, Terry Hatcher, got Eddie Albert, Richard Belzer, John Cleese, Stephen Collins, Fran Drescher, June Lockhart, Roddy McDowall, Elliot Gould, Martin Short, you see a lot of him in the trailer, but he's uncredited in this, and he's actually pretty funny in this. They've got a great cast involved here, and they do have a lot of good, funny moments in here. It's a very underrated movie. I think a lot of people really should take another look at it. The big picture. It's a movie that, like I said, not a lot of people know about, but you probably should. So let's go ahead and check out the last film, which is Apartment Zero, which features Hart Bochner and Colin Firth in one of the earliest movie roles that I know of him in. It's interesting to listen to Colin Firth in that trailer, and he sounds like Colin Firth, but at the same time, he doesn't sound like the Colin Firth that we're all used to hearing. Like, his voice is more high pitched nowadays compared to what we see here. And both of them are pretty good in the movie. The movie itself, though, is just nah. It's a generic movie. It's a generic psychological thriller. There's a lot of homoerotic overtones and black comedy moments in here that don't make a whole lot of sense. And I think they were just trying a little too hard to make this kind of stand out on its own, but it ends up being more generic than most people would look at. And they try to give that the edge with some of the stuff they do here, but a different edge to it, but it just doesn't work here. There's just so much here that we've seen done over and over, time and time again, and done much better, but not in this movie, though. The performances are good. The movie itself, not so much. Hard pass on Apartment Zero, unfortunately. And with that said, we wrap up another week of Time About the Movies. Next time around, we have Michael Douglas in the thriller Black Rain, directed by Ridley Scott. We also have A Dry White Season, Blood Fist, Heavy Petting, and Eric the Viking. So 5 more movies to look at, I should say. That'll be what we'll look at next time around, which will be tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching this video, and as always, if you want to see more episodes of Time About the Movies like this, check out the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode on the same page as well, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and until then, take care.